Hello and welcome to Shade Tree Philosophy. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're continuing in our narrative study, line study of the Gospel of Mark. And today we're in chapter 14. We're going to begin in verse 31, but before we go there, let's kind of recap, because before our last study, we were looking at Jesus and he was in the upper room, and that is a very significant portion of his ministry, although in the Gospel of Mark it's pretty short and sweet. And then we move on with a prayer. He goes through the emblems of what are now his emblems of his covenant, which are the bread and the wine, which are symbols of peace, not the shedding of an animal's blood, but his blood and his body, which will be broken. And of course, he carried on the tradition of the Passover meal by explaining what all the emblems meant. And so in this case, he was talking about the new covenant and the beginning of his suffering. And so, as he said when he talked about the wine, his blood would be poured out for many. And so we are going into that part of his ministry, his good work, and that begins in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so right after the upper room, they sing a hymn, and then they go out to the Garden of Gethsemane, and that's where we begin today. And the Garden of Gethsemane, by the way, means olive press. And so this was an olive garden, and it's a place where Jesus often went to rest with his disciples and to recline and to be at ease. And it's a place that he often went to pray. So metaphorically, some have said that olive press could be talking about this particular time, and that's why he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, because he will be pressed, and this is the beginning of his suffering. And this was really what brings us into a true relationship with God. I think his whole ministry has led to this point. He has proven himself by word and deed, and now he has to continue on with his good work. And this is when he must bear the burden of our sins, and he will be pressed. The full weight of that will be upon him, and he will suffer beyond what we could ever imagine. And it should never be taken lightly. It should never be approached as a Christian, as a disciple, in a profane way or in a way that is less than paying. I'm trying to think homage, but in a humble way and in a respectful way to these passages, and in a mindful way, I should say. So anyway, we begin in verse 32. And they came to a place which was named Gethsemane, and he saith unto his disciples, Sit ye here while I shall pray. So he asked them to sit while he's praying. Now, he knows what's going on, but they don't yet, I suppose, other than what he's told them. But he knows the full weight of what's coming. And so he's praying now, and this is just the beginning. And he taketh with him Peter and James and John, and began to be sore amazed and to be very heavy. And could you imagine? Sore amazed and to be very heavy. There's other versions that just say he became very distressed, and he felt the weight and the passion and the pressure of the moment. It says he became very heavy. And he saith unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful unto death. Tarry ye here and watch. Being exceeding sorrow unto death, I know I have had a dark night. And this is certainly his darkest night. But Jesus has never, in all of his ministry and all of his narrative, has never been sorrowful, other than maybe he was sorry about people's views of him, but never sorrowful about his life and his purpose. And so, he has to become the object, I guess, of God's wrath here. He's got to take on the weight of the world. And so he has to be the perfect sacrifice. Now, whether that meant he took on the wrath or whether he just became, his blood was poured out for the forgiveness of many. What that means completely can be pondered and thought on many, many hours. And I don't know if we'll ever come fully to the conclusion of what that meant or how grave a price that was paid, because it takes meditation on that. It's hard to express in words. It takes more of a feeling of the heart and the deep spiritual makeup of the soul and of the mind that takes meditating on it. But here we are, we're going through the study, and so we're just kind of touching on it. But it says he asked them to tarry ye here and watch. Verse 35, he goes on, and he went forward a little and fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And I'm sure, this is where you see Jesus as the human. He's a human being that has to now bear his life alone. He will be truly alone here. He's walked forward a little and he's alone, but now his alone journey begins, and he will feel it. He's asking now that the hour might pass from him, because I'm sure he would love to have another way, but he didn't get a response. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt. Those words echo, but, we've said that too, but oh gosh, we've never had this price to pay. He's going to be horribly beaten and suffer horribly at the hands of the people who are supposed to have accepted him. And, what a horrible thing to look forward to. I don't know how, because Jesus never expresses sorrow or distress like this in any other part of the gospel. And I don't know how he could have, gone through his whole 30 plus years knowing that this was coming, not have that distracted him all the time, knowing that was where he was ultimately going. And nevertheless, not what I will, he said, but what thou wilt. And, he wasn't getting an answer. He wasn't getting the answer he wanted. What he wanted was it to be for him not to have to suffer that cup, and that those the beatings and the separation from God that it would take. So, verse 37, and he cometh and findeth them sleeping, and saith unto Peter, Simon, sleepeth thou? Couldest not thou watch 1 hour? And oh gosh, you think in his darkest hour, he's already kind of told them what's going on here now. But this is his darkest hour. And the guys, the three especially that he brought forward and to be with him in his darkest hour, they're just not meeting the hour. And he says, stay and pray. He asked them to pray, but they couldn't do it for even an hour. But could we, I often put myself in the place of these apostles. They were already exhausted. They had a big meal. They were probably sorrowful. Judas had left. They knew that someone was going to betray him. They all said it was not I, we will never betray you. Jesus had already told them that the shepherd was going to be struck and they would all desert him, and they all swore an oath that they would not, but they couldn't even keep an hour of watch. And so, verse 38, it says, watch thee and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. The spirit is truly ready, but the flesh is weak. Now, I don't know what kind of temptation Jesus was imagining for them, except for now they're going to really have to believe everything he said and not deny it, because now they're going to be put to, the shepherd is going to be struck and they will be scattered, and so they're going to have to come to some conclusion about who Jesus was, and they're probably not going to be happy with the experience of the next few weeks, because it takes a while. And so, yeah, they're going to have a tough time. And Jesus says that he would meet them in Galilee, and here they are in Jerusalem. Okay, so anyway, so they're probably confused, as I would be. Watch ye and pray, test, lest ye enter into temptation, unless temptation is being put to the test. Pray so you won't be tested, I guess. The spirit truly is ready, but the flesh is weak, and the flesh is weak. The flesh is continually weak. We never do anything right. You think about it, and Jesus was alone, and yet these guys weren't even with him then, and he knew they weren't going to they weren't going to watch for an hour, and he was alone. I'm sure he felt the price, and then he was alone. And I've had that feeling of being alone, and it's just you, although I've always kind of had the benefit of knowing my Lord was with me. But Jesus is about to experience his Lord, not even his Lord being with him. He will be separated in some way. Now, I'm kind of putting my own interpretations in here, but, he is going to pay the price for the sins of the world. And so his price is going to cost him some separation from the Lord, because I don't understand all the metaphysical reasons why he had to be separated from God to be the sacrifice and to suffer completely. But, Jesus does cry out on the cross, why, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And so we are in the Gospel of Mark, and we're getting ahead. And I'm not even sure that that's in this Gospel where he says that, because Mark is a little different. It is the first Gospel, believed to be the first Gospel. And so it's kind of a shorter, to the point synopsis and lacks some detail. All right, so verse 39, and again he went away and prayed and spake the same words. Sorry, I got to get a drink. I guess he was asking again for the cup to pass from him. He says he went away and prayed and spake the same words. So again, he went away and asked God the same things he'd asked him before, but he wasn't getting an answer, was he? He wasn't getting the answer he wanted. I think this is when he's starting to feel that separation. Because God always answered his prayers, and here he is. He's not getting an answer, doesn't seem to be. You can interpret it that way anyway. We're all fair. It's all fair to interpret without getting too far away from the scriptures, and that's what these studies are about, looking at the story and trying to glean what the story was trying to get to. But there's always something to be learned. And as I go through these videos and I look back, I see just how much I've missed and how much more could be discussed. But I trust that you're in these videos for something out of them. I hope it's not just my face and my boringness. I know that's not it. And so I hope that you get something to chew on out of these videos that will spur you on to search and ask for treasure. what the scriptures have to offer. All right, verse 39, and again he went away and prayed and spake the same words. Verse 40, and when he returned, he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. Imagine Jesus was heavy. Their eyes were heavy. They were human. Spirit is willing, the body's weak. And we are too. And so, God knew that these people were human too. And he was going to be alone because we fell. Just think of how many times we have failed to follow through when God was coming back and asking us to do something. It's as simple as maybe even prayer. My glasses are falling. And how much we can get caught up in that, in our own thing, and not follow through and do the things that the Lord has asked us to do. Yet the Lord knew we were going to do those things, and he went to the cross anyway. And he suffered this time alone because he knew that his blood would be shed for many, and his body would be broken. His body would surely be put on a cross and hung and suffocated, and his bones weren't broken, but he was made to suffer. His bones were pulled all out of joint. Isaiah 53, not Isaiah 53, is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah, Isaiah 53. A suffering Messiah. All right, verse 41, and he cometh the third time and saith unto them, sleep on now, take your rest. It is enough. It is enough. I wonder what that meant. It is enough. Sleep now, take your rest. It is enough. I guess he's saying it's probably a good thing you did because you aren't going to get any sleep now. No, he says, sleep on now. Take your rest. Okay, it is enough. The hour is come. Behold, the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. So he has been betrayed, and the betrayer, of course, was one of his own. Into the hands of sinners, those who were not worthy. He was not the sinner, but he was betrayed. He was handed over to those who were not worthy of him. Yep. They would respond in the way that Jesus wanted or not. But he knew that his blood would be shed for many, and that many would respond, I believe. Rise up, before he was saying, sleep on. I guess it must have been a poetic moment because he says, rise up, let us go. Lo, he that betrayeth me is at hand. Man, in the weight of his moment. Now, it's all crashing in. It's all coming. The moment has arrived. When he was in the garden before, where it says he was distressed, where he was, let's see, let me go back. And he says to them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful unto death. There is a condition, or there's another gospel, it's in Luke, where it says, Luke 22, where it says he fell into anguish and his sweat became as blood, and it's from so much anguish. And that's a condition, I can't remember what the condition is called, but it's something that if you're really, really under heavy load and distress, you can actually break the capillaries in your forehead, and your blood will mix with your sweat and come down off your brow. So he wasn't just in a little bit of turmoil here. He was in universal, deep regret, turmoil. I guess not regret, because he was doing what he wanted. But he surely did not want to have to go through this, and he didn't want to have to do it alone, but he's doing both things. He's going through it, and he's doing it alone. And he knew that when the shepherd was struck, that his followers would be scattered, the sheep would be scattered. Verse 43, and immediately while he spake, while he was still speaking those words, behold, my betrayer's at hand. Cometh Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude, with swords and staves, from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. So we don't know who those folks are. The chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Chief priests is the Sanhedrins, Sadducees. The scribes, lawyers, we talked about those. The elders, that could be the Pharisees and people of high regard. The Sanhedrin. And they came from those guys. So a great multitude with swords and staves. We've heard about swords and staves. We know what that's all about. We've watched many a video where the peasants rose up. But in this case, these are the guys from the Sanhedrin coming to get Jesus to put him to death. All right. We're going to end there. And we'll pick it up in verse 44. I encourage you to read on in this chapter and to reflect on how far we've already gone. I've gone over a little bit, 20 minutes here, but I do ask and I pray and I hope that you guys will take a little more time with these particular passages and to remember what it is that the sacrifice that brought us all into a covenant relationship with the Father and what that cost. And we'll see you then next time on Shade Tree Philosophy, and we'll continue on the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14, and we'll pick it up in verse, 44. And we'll end today on verse 43. And we'll see you next time.